Greetings and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker Hagan, and I have my co host along with me, Dr. J.
Greetings. I was waiting to come on. Greetings, and it's so glad to have each and every one of you joining us tonight on a really chilly night here in South Florida, but one in which we're ready to roll. So tune in, share, invite a neighbor, because we're going to have some hot topics from the soul.
Absolutely. I'm so excited about our guest tonight, Dr. Cheryl D. George, and she is going to help us understand healthcare as it looks like for 2026. This is going to be very informative, so please share it. And if you happen to miss it, just go back and replay it so that you can get the information needed. Dr. Cheryl is a founder of Insure with Cheryl. She makes health insurance simple. And I know this because she's helped me several times as it relates to the marketplace and choosing insurance. And I know after I got married and I had to transition from one insurance to the next, Dr. Cheryl was very helpful and very instrumental in making sure I got the best plan needed, not only for me, but also my husband, because he later retired after 3 years. And she was so gracious enough to help me with that. Dr. Cheryl, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Valerie. Thank you, Dr. JR. It's good to be here. Hot topics from the soul. I love it. Thank you for inviting
I
me.
know it's hot topics. We got to talk about everything that's going on here, especially as it relates to health insurance, because the government was shut down because health insurance was one of the issues that was on the table regarding our lives. And I want you to expound on that, and what that looks like for a lot of Americans as it stands right now.
Well, in regard of the shutdown, regardless of the shutdown, open enrollment is still going on. That did not pause or is not going to be affected. This open enrollment will not be affected. So open enrollment starting on November 1st, and it's going to go into January 15th. And so that is still in play. What they are fighting about now in Congress is what happens after this open enrollment, what happens beyond 2026. So will the premiums or the tax credits that they give you now to afford health insurance, will that go away or will that be reduced? That's what the fight is about now. So it's imperative to get the insurance now while the getting is good, as they would say.
So many times, Dr. Cheryl, people hear the different acronyms, right? You alluded to marketplace insurance. You hear people say Affordable Care Act, which is official government name. Then you hear Obamacare inside of all of these things here, and we know that it was a fight from the very beginning with Obamacare being passed, and a lot of great things happened. Then a lot of things were trying to be gutted out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it important in this day and time, especially for people, I would say, that may be small business, self-employed, may not have insurance at all? Why is it important that they have insurance in this day and time?
Okay, first there's a couple questions inside that question. Let me
Yes.
start with the multiple names. The marketplace of Affordable Care Act and Obamacare is the same thing.
Right.
It was nicknamed Obamacare because it was Obama that put it into play. But the Affordable Care Act and the Obamacare is the same thing. The marketplace is also the same thing. The marketplace is where you go to buy the insurance.
Exactly.
Okay. Multiple states, when it first came out in 2013, all the states was on it. Now, some states have migrated to their own platforms. And so depending on the state that you're in, excuse me, you might have a federal marketplace or you might have a state marketplace. Like Florida is a federal marketplace. Pennsylvania is a state marketplace. So the marketplace is where you go. And why you should have insurance why you should get it during open enrollment, because open enrollment is the only time that you can get insurance and your health doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have cancer. It doesn't matter if you have a heart attack. It doesn't matter if you had a stroke. It doesn't matter if you're overweight, if you're obese, any and none of those things. It doesn't matter if you're pregnant. They cannot deny you. during open enrollment, which is from November 1st to January 15th. They must accept you. And so if you have chronic illness, if you're fighting something, if you have a lot of issues, you or your children or whatever, or you expect something to be coming up, like you're trying to get pregnant or something like that, or you're going to leave your job and become self-employed, this will be the time to get the insurance. Or you suspect something's happening with your your health, this is the time. Plus, you have the government subsidies to help subsidize your insurance. And people that make six figures can still get government subsidy. It depends on where in the country you are. More cities are more expensive than others. It's more expensive to live in New York and California than it is to live in Atlanta, Georgia. So
So, is it safe to say that the argument now on the table is the government no longer wants to subsidize the insurance for Americans?
that's correct. They no longer want to subsidize it. That's correct. Ever since Obamacare or Affordable Care Act came into play, it's been a fight. Every president since President Obama has fought against it. One, they want the name, because everyone affectionately calls it Obamacare. When Trump came into office, he's not this term, his last term, he changed the name to Trump Care, and then so every president has fought against the subsidies. However, more Americans have been insured since the Obamacare came into place, or the Affordable Care Act, and more lives have been saved. There's people that would never have gone to the doctor that go to the doctor. There's procedures that never would have been performed. There are seniors that can't afford their medicine, or people that can't afford the medicines, like people that have diabetes. Those medicines are expensive. Or the people that are doing the weight loss for health reasons, the Wegovy and all of that. That's like, that's very expensive. The folks that have cancer, I have someone that I know right now that has cancer. The medicine is $13,000 a month. But because they have insurance, it only costs them $200 a month. So
Wow.
so it's life changing.
So let me ask you a question, because one of the things, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that I remember that was such a big sticking point when Health Care Act came was the fact of insurance companies not being able to penalize you for pre-existing conditions and things. And so we're in a day and time now where there's a lot of things that are happening, and there are people who, whether they lost their job, they're self-employed, and people try to skate around not having health care and having health insurance, but there's such a domino effect, because you can have one thing that just spirals into so many other things, and you will be buried inside of medical debt. And not to mention the insecurity of feeling like, when you go to a hospital and you don't have insurance at all, you feel some type of way, because you wonder, number one, am I going to be a priority to them? Number two, are they going to do all that they can to help me, to treat me? And thirdly, you're definitely thinking about, I'm not going to be able to pay these bills. So when you start talking about having insurance and understanding these things here, how would you, if you would, urge people to take advantage of it, even when they leave their jobs? Oftentimes when people leave their job, they lose their health insurance. And I know they offer this thing called Cobra and
Over.
everything. How would you advise them to go, to handle something like that? Because Cobra is not cheap neither, inside of it. But how would you advise them? What is there should be a plan? Should they think about it before they leave a job? What's going to be that next step for as health insurance?
Okay, so during open enrollment, that's the only time where you can get insurance and not be penalized. The exception to that rule is what you call special events. A special event is losing your job, having a baby, getting a divorce, adopting a child, coming out of prison. Those are special events. And when that happens, you have 60 days from the time that happened, from the time you lost your insurance on your job or whatever, 60 days from the time that happened to get into an insurance plan. And you're treated just like you would be treated in open enrollment. Your health does not matter. Outside of those two events, when you go to get health insurance, companies can deny you because you're not in open enrollment. So you can be denied. and you won't have a subsidy. So whatever the insurance cost is, it's your cost. The other thing that people need to realize, insurance, the very definition of insurance, the easiest way for me to explain insurance to you, especially for a Christian community, they understand tithing and offering. Your premium is like your tithe. That's how I tell my clients. It's like your tithe. You pay a small amount of money to the insurance company to take on the risk. Because basically, what insurance means is, you ever been to the hospital and they ask you if you're insured, and if you say no, I'm not insured, they say self-insured. They never say not insured. They say self-insurance. The definition of insurance means that you are taking on the risk. Your pockets are taking on the financial risk of what's about to happen. So that's with health insurance, that's with car insurance, that's with home insurance. If you don't get insurance, you are taking on the risk. But when you pay a premium, it's usually a small percentage. You pay the premium and they take on the risk. So insurance buys you peace of mind. That's what insurance does. And I would encourage anyone to have insurance, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know about the car accident. You never know when you're going to be doing a honey-do list and put a stapler through your knee, or fall off a ladder, or these things happen. And these are true stories. They happen all the time. Guys are out there trying to show their teenage sons that they still got it, and they playing basketball, and they go do a hot hoop, and then they take out their back. Then they can't work for 6 weeks, right? True stories. And these things happen. So you should have insurance, because it buys you peace of mind. And it's a small amount of money.
We talked about last week that like over 800,000 Americans have lost jobs since January. And a lot of those individuals found work, but it's part-time, because a lot of companies are hiring people part-time so that they don't have to pay medical insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Affordable Care Act, how are individuals compensated through this avenue?
Well, the fact that they're working part-time means they're going to get a bigger tax break. The less money, the bigger the break. So you can get a premium. You can get a insurance policy, and the premium may be $1,200, but because of your income and the size of your household, you may only pay $50 out of that $1,200. The credits are incredible, and so.
But that's through the Affordable Care Act. That's if they get insurance through the marketplace.
Yes. And they
Okay.
should. So if they're part-time, if their employer does not offer insurance, then they should go ahead and get insurance through the marketplace. That's why it was set up. That's part of the reason it was set up. So they're going to qualify. There's no qualifications. They're going to qualify. And then they have in the marketplace a section for small business owners where they can offer insurance to their employees. If they have 50 employees or less, they have the option of subsidizing it, or just making it available to their employees who can get it at a reduced rate.
Okay, I've put your website on the screen for those that want to connect with you. It's insurewithcheryl.com. That's
Mm-hmm.
insurewithcheryl.com for those that listen through audio. And you are licensed in 22 states. And also you have business relationships where if you're not licensed in the states, of individuals that may reach out to you, that you work with a network of other agents that can assist people. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we
And
cover
also your financial strategist too. So how has it been helping individuals strategize? Because people have lost jobs, so they've gone into their investments
Mm-hmm.
and utilize that to able to make ends meet. Um, what should they do moving forward?
So in this economy that we're in right now, I'm getting a lot of phone calls about losing jobs, or I'm afraid I'm gonna lose job, or what's happening with the marketplace and things like that. Although I do health insurance, 80% of what I do is called infinite banking. I show people how to use their life insurance policy to finance their lifestyle. And so I've been encouraging my clients, that especially those that are self-employed, moms, basically all the clients. So I've been encouraging them, if they're homeowners, to pull the equity out of their home, so that if the market tanks, the equity is out of their home. Because while the equity is sitting in their home, it's not earning them any money. And then they have to qualify by having a high credit score, and they have to qualify by having a good job and all of that. Pull that money out and put it into an instrument, being the infinite banking policy, where you don't have to have good credit, you don't have to have a job, and you don't have to be 59 and a half. You don't have any of those restrictions. The money is liquid. It is yours to use interchangeably as you see fit. We teach you how to do it. We structure it around you so that you're well protected, insulated. So we're telling people to balance out their portfolio. If you have all your money in the market, pull some out. You know, pull some of that money out, so that if the market tanks, everything you have won't be in one nest egg. Everything won't be, won't take with that. So we look at the client, we look at the needs, we look at the debt. We're trying to get people out of debt as quickly as possible, because the interest rates are killing folks. It's not the debt, it's the interest on the debt that's killing folks. And we teach them about that, and then we show them how to shift their thinking and shift their portfolio, so that we can service them better.
Okay, so
No,
you're saying that individuals that have life insurance, are you talking about whole life policies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're talking about whole life policies with a mutual insurance company, and we're using those policies to get people out of debt. We're using those policies to help people to start another career. We're using those policies to help people buy real estate. We're using those policies to help people even travel. Some people want to just travel, put their kids through college, create a retirement fund. It just depends on what the needs are.
let me ask you a question, because I know that we've heard a lot about that type of thing, in most recent years. Uh, Many years ago, as a real 18, 19-year-old, believe it or not, I sold life insurance. and and one of the things, when we sold whole life, uh, and those type of things there, and even from my days growing up, our parents just paid into something that was just there. Okay, when someone died, you got the money, there, and most times was the burial. And I found out a long time ago that policy mother had paid on for 40 years. By the time when she passed, the policy was probably worth $15,000. Of course, you paid way more into it. This whole thing now about being able to use that money and be able to do what you're saying, is it something new, or just something that has become more broadly known in the last several years?
It's not new. It's hundreds of years old. It is a book out called "What the Rockefellers Do." It is how the Rockefellers built their empire. It is how Ron Kroc, what's his uh the guy that brought out the McDonald brothers. That's how he used a life insurance policy. Walt Disney used a life insurance policy to buy the land to build Walt Disney. It's not new. It is new. The COVID millionaires, I call them COVID millionaires. The people that became millionaires during COVID, when they got into money, they didn't know what to do with the money. They wanted to know how to preserve the money, how to save the money, how to protect the money, and they started researching, and that's how the secret got out. But it's been
That's exactly what I'm saying.
that
It
yes, so
it
that's how
it
the
was a
secret got
secret
out.
for the most part.
It was a secret for the most part, and they tried to protect the secret. But with the internet and the new COVID millionaires, the young COVID millionaires, they was digging and digging and digging, and they discovered it. And so they started telling people about it, because truth be told, if you have money, if you have assets, if you have real estate, and you don't have infinite banks, you're overpaying in taxes. Especially if you're a realtor. If you have properties, multiple properties, two or more properties, and you don't have an infinite bank, you're overpaying in taxes. I can tell you that 100% without even looking at your portfolio, because there are tax laws. Did you know that these insurance policies are in the tax laws? It's called 7702. It's written into the
Oh,
tax. Most people don't even know it. It's in the tax laws. And so um, it's been a well kept secret for a long time, especially from us, our community.
I know millions of people have got caught off guard like I did. I've always had some type of life insurance. It's just like Dr. J said, mom and grandma, they would play the and back in the day used to come to the house
Mhm.
and
Debit
collect
insurance.
your premium. And what I got caught off guard was, you know, an insurance man came and sold me some insurance. I didn't know what type of insurance I had.
Right.
And I wound up having term
Hmm.
life insurance. I had $500,000 worth of life insurance on me and my spouse at the time, and then I think they gave us 15,000 a piece for the children, and 20 years paying on that policy. And then I got a notification saying if I want to continue this policy, it's almost $800 a month when I was actually paying 145 a quarter.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
exactly right.
lost it and had to start all over again. At that point, I was educated on whole life. So,
Hmm.
can you kind of bring some balancing into those that are listening about the why is it okay for term, and at what point it is good for term, and what whole life looks like?
Okay. So just like everything, there are levels. And so term is equivalent to renting an apartment. So when you rent an apartment, you have a lease for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. A term is you're renting insurance for a certain amount of time. That's why it's called term. So it's going to be for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, some places 40
All
years.
that money, all that
Yeah.
money.
And there's no equity in the term, meaning all the money you put in, you either use it or you lose it. It doesn't build cash. Term is good if you are on a tight budget and you want to make sure your family is still protected. You buy term until you can do better. Then when you can do better, you graduate into a whole life policy, right? So term is good for when you're just starting out. Or term is for if you want to layer on top of your whole life policy. You can't afford all of that amount of, because whole life it costs more money than term. If you want to layer it, if you want like that $1 million that you had, but you had a whole life underneath it, you can do that. A whole life policy is just what it is. It's for your whole life. That's the name. It's either called a whole life or it's called a permanent. They're the same, whole life and permanent. And now under whole life or permanent, you have different kinds of insurance. You have IULs, and um, then you have the whole life policy. The IUL is designed for, in my opinion, younger people that are just getting into the marketplace, late 20s, early 30s, and they have time to play because the IUL is attached to the market. And so
No.
whatever happens in the market, the IUL is going to do what the market is doing. And so you can get great gains, but you can also get great losses. And
Okay.
there are no guarantees in the IUL. You get, it's a gamble. There's no, just like the
Mhm.
market, it's a gamble, no guarantees. In a whole life policy, the whole life policy is a guarantee. You're buying a guarantee, and the whole life policy builds cash. So you paying a premium, but it's also going to build cash. Now there's two levels of cash. There's the regular traditional whole life policy where you pay your premium and it builds a little bit of cash over time. Then you have these infinite banking policies where you can overfund it. You can stuff money into it. You can pull money out of your 401k. You can pull money from your mattress. You can pull money from your home and your equity and stuff it into these policies with a limit. That we have what we call a MEC limit. The IRS does determine how much money you can put in there, and then those policies are growing and uninterrupted, meaning the money that you put in there, it never comes. I shouldn't say never comes out, but it's growing uninterrupted, and then it's compounding. So it grows much, much faster than the traditional whole life policy. All policies are good depending on where you're at in your life. And policies can be interchangeable. You can start with one and grow to another, or you can mix and match. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
so let's say I have my money in investments now,
Mm-hmm.
and the strategy that you just mentioned, I can, if I pull all of that out of there and put it in an investment portfolio, will I be penalized for that? Because, if you have your money in IRAs and all that, if you take it out, you'll get penalized with a penalty, and you be taxed extra depending on your age. So what does that look like?
Yeah, again, like you just said, it depends on your age, and it depends. But with most investment, most IRAs and 401ks and things like that, you're going to be taxed on it anyway. So, and we don't know what tomorrow's tax is going to look like. So, if you pull it out now and you're taxed at today's dollars, and you're young enough, you can more than likely make that up over the years, whatever you paid in taxes, you can make that up. Or we could strategize so that the policy is paying the taxes that you would have paid. So that's really complicated for this show, but that's a way we can get it done.
Okay,
Dr.
so
Cheryl, one of the things, and I'm listening to you now, and like I said, I used to have a former life, and I'm not, and now I'm not sure if I understood the former life, but at one time it was a big movement about buy term and invest the difference.
Hmm.
That was the case there, and I know people to this day that have done very well. That was agents, that is, in the business of doing it. And inside of that, uh, have there been some type of resurgence or better explanation of a whole life over the last 15 years? Because I remember a period of time that was just solely, it looked like the whole thing with buying term, investing difference was just blanketing the whole market, the whole place there. And then in most recent years, I'm hearing more about whole life. And you use the term I did not know until right now, this infinite banking term. I did not know it by that name. I did not know about some of these things. And I later discovered, even with churches, a lot of churches, and I hate to say that, unfortunately, not enough in our communities. A lot of churches jumped on this in other communities. They had members who literally had insurance policies, and monies was left to the church.
Hmm.
Uh, they
Endowments.
had they used monies from those policies to do so. I have a colleague out in California who has literally gets an endowment every month in some incredible amount from a
Hmm.
person who left that in their through their insurance.
Hmm.
And these are kind of like, it's like the secret is out, or we are just more exposed now to these things here. And I'm just wondering, are we really taking advantage of it?
We haven't been taken advantage because we've been lied to. We've been
Right.
taught buy term and invest the difference. Most people don't invest the difference. The majority of people don't invest the difference. So they buy the term and they don't invest the difference, and they buy a term policy for 20 years when they're 25 years old, and then at 45 they have to buy another insurance policy, and they're 20 years older. The older you are, the more expensive it
yes.
costs. So if you purchase
Exactly.
the whole life at 25 years, I have a client that just purchased a policy for $1 million. She's 31 years old. It's $1 million. It's gonna cost her 275 dollars, something like that, for $1 million. And she's gonna have the ability to put in and out of that policy hundreds of thousands of dollars that she'll be able to overfund her policy with. So the younger you are, the cheaper it is. The other thing is when people have problems in their life, when life is lifing, they're not going to invest. They're going to take care of what's happening in their life.
Right.
So they never get to the investment part, or if they get to the investment part, something happens in their life and they have to drain it, right? And once they drain the investment, it's gone. The thing about these whole life policies, it's like a line of credit. You use it, you pay it back. You use it, you pay it back. It's always there. And so when life you can go in it and come back out of it. And then the other thing, like I said earlier, it's guaranteed. The interest that you earn is guaranteed. The benefits that you're going to have is guaranteed. And the other thing, there's a reason it's called life insurance. Most people don't realize it. It's called life insurance because there are living benefits inside of it. So if you come down with a heart attack, cancer, stroke, not diabetes, but one of the major illnesses, there's a percentage of your death benefit that will be given to you while you're alive in a lump sum that you never have to pay back. And it's unrestricted, meaning you're not restricted to just using it for healthcare. You can use it to pay your bills. You can use it for the healthcare. You can use it for travel. You can use it for whatever you want, and you never have to pay it back. Nobody's teaching that. That's a
And but the dollar amount will be intact for your beneficiaries.
The beneficiary would be minus what was given to you in your life. So
Okay.
if you have $1 million policy and you have a stroke and the insurance company gives you a check for $250,000, because the benefits that you receive is somewhere between 10% and 75% of your death benefit. So for easy math, let's say they gave you 25%, which is $250,000. Now the death benefit is 750,000 because you got
Okay.
250,000 up front that you never have to pay back. Make
Okay.
Makes
sense?
sense.
So while you're paying for this, you're actually enjoying the benefits. You have the living benefits, you have your death benefit, which is growing. Like the term that you purchased for 20 years, or the ones that your mother purchased, they're fixed. Whatever amount, if you purchase a $15,000 policy, it's going to remain 15,000 even if you pay for it for 30, 40 years. These whole life policies, they grow every single year. So you may purchase 100,000 and next year is 105, 110, 120, and then it grows over your lifetime. So by the time you pass away, that $100,000 that you paid for may have grown to 300,000, 400,000. So those policies grow. You have the living benefits, and then you have the banking benefits.
Wow. That was enlightening. That's what we do here at Hot Topics from the Soul. That was enlightening, and I know that it had to be because of the fact I could I could see the different benchmarks over time, and you just revealed it. What we don't know does hurt us,
It
and
does. Mhm.
there's a lot of people who play Russian roulette. They live without insurance, just
Mhm.
thinking it'll be all right. But the old commercial used to be, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And the oxymoron of that is that you're always going to need it.
I have many, 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 many testimonies. I have a young guy in Florida, early 30s. He gave up his insurance because he's like, I'm in my early 30s. I'm healthy. I'm at the peak of my life. I'm not going to need this insurance, and I don't want to pay $300 a month for it. About 2 months later, he was diagnosed with cancer, and he had $400,000 worth of medical bills. That $300 a month sounded really good, didn't
Oh, it sounds real good. Oh, can you hear it singing? Yeah, I mean, exactly.
it?
Yeah, what we don't know does hurt us every time. And
Every
I
time.
think that this type of education is warranted, is needed, because there are those of us of a certain generation, we still have that old tape recorder of, as you were saying, fixed life, whole life policies. We have those old tape recorders in our mind. And, and we and collaborate on this. So many people are screaming, get it. They just say, I'm getting burial insurance.
Right.
That's kind of myopic to a certain degree, that you're only thinking about it in terms of being able to bury
Mhm.
versus all the other benefits that really comes from having life
Mhm.
insurance.
Mhm. The burial insurance people, when they go so long without the insurance, they're getting into their 60s and their 70s, and they don't have insurance. The only option they have is to get a burial insurance, to get something for 10 or 15, $20,000, because the cost of the insurance is
Yes.
exorbitant. And so they gotta alleviate some pressure from the family and just let them just bury me. So, but a wise man leaves an inheritance. He's supposed to leave an inheritance. And when the scriptures talk about the wealth transfer, the only instrument right now that we have that transfer wealth from one person to another without taxation is insurance. It's the only one. Real estate, there's taxation.
Right.
The investment portfolio, there's taxation. But a life insurance policy, you can give $1 million, $2 million, $500,000 life insurance policy to your beneficiary without tax. That's the wealth transfer. And we're in the greatest wealth transfer right now because the baby boomers are passing and they're leaving it to the Gen X.
Yes.
So it's already started 20 years ago. We're already in this thing. In 4 years, we're coming to the end of the baby boomers. I'm the last of the baby boomers. We're coming to the end of it.
So am I.
And all the money that because the baby boomers were the generation that made the money. We're the
Right.
ones that they got into the corporate jobs, and we're the ones that had the 401k. Because 401k wasn't around always.
Right.
came out in the 80s, and you know why they created the 401k? Because they needed a way to access our money for a long period of time without paying us for it. They take our money out of our paychecks every 2 weeks or every week, and they use it in the stock market, and they build wealth with it, and they become your partner, but they don't give you no share of the interest that they're making. So they hold your money for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, penalize you, make sure you can't touch it before 59 and a half, and they're using that money. And then when you get 59 and a half, they bring it back to you, and they take half of it from taxes.
Take half of it.
Taxes.
Wow,
That's
Dr.
Yeah,
Cheryl.
that's what we need a government shutdown about.
Yes, yes, yes. Dr. Cheryl, we absolutely must have you back. And those of you that are
Yeah.
tuning in and listening, this has been very informative. And you can connect with Dr. Cheryl with insurewithcheryl.com. That's insurewithcheryl.com. And also, as we're signing off, Dr. Cheryl, one more thing I want you to talk about really quick is the deadline for those that have Medicare, Medicaid.
December 15th is the deadline. So Medicaid and Medicare is in open enrollment right now as well. They started on October 15th and it goes into December 15th. So get covered. And I think there's a second opportunity. There might be a second opportunity, but December 15th is the cutoff. So you can have a January 1st start date.
Thank you so much. So thank you all for tuning in to Hot Topics from the Soul. And as I said, make sure you connect with Dr. Cheryl and tune in next week for another Hot Topics from the Soul. And don't forget to subscribe to Hot Topics from the Soul. Good night. Love you always.
From the soul, yeah. Hot topics from the soul, yeah. Hot topics from the soul, reaching all minds, turning knowledge into gold. Yeah.